Welcome everybody to the Too High Podcast. I am Seth alongside Diante Elite. Diante, what's going on?
Not much, man. I have been waiting for a weekend of football like this for what feels like 2 months now. Well, let me give some credit. Like the Bengals-Chiefs game that we had in the second half of the season was pretty entertaining, but we kind of went through a little bit of a lull in this period of the season, and then obviously Wild Card Weekend didn't do much to inspire a lot of thought outside of like Cowboys-Niners, but we got basically 4 interesting finishes this weekend, and at least 2 of them I think were kind of interesting games throughout.
Yeah, like, the Saturday games were at least both ended on the last play, even though they were a little bit slot ball-esque.
Right.
A little bit fuckball-esque. but then Sunday, obviously both games ending on the last play, and both were just unbelievable football games, even though the first one was more a game that was mistake-riddled. That became a close game, and then the Sunday Nighter is the best football game of all time. Do you agree? Do you disagree?
Dude, it's up there. It's up there. I don't know. I don't know how many games. I will definitely say, like, in the last decade, man, you'd have a hard time finding a bunch of games that are going to be better than that one. Like, obviously, people bring up, like, some of the classics from, however long ago. But in my recent memory, I think I put it in our group chat that, like, there was, like, an hour period where I did not sit down. I was just, like, pacing, watching these 2 quarterbacks go back and forth.
I'll tell you what. I don't know if you watched the game with your family or anything, but I illegally, because of what's going on here, hung out with some friends. And, it's dumb, but, like, especially over the past 2 years with all the lockdown and stuff, I've watched a lot of football alone. I love watching football. I don't care where. There's a big difference when you watch it with people.
Yes, especially a game like that.
This is the game that you wanted to watch with people.
A game like that, yes. 100%. It's funny. Like, well, I had some family over, and my dad was actually working on the lawn as, like, by the end of the night or whatever. And I just remember, like, I ran outside like I was a kid. Like, it brings back that feeling. Yeah. Running out as a kid, like, yo, you missed this. I need you to stop whatever you're doing right now and get in here for this replay, because I can't explain this to you in a way that you believe. Like, you have to see this with your own 2 eyes to understand why I feel the way that I feel.
All right, before we get deeper into it, just a reminder that the Too High Podcast is sponsored by, of course, Pro Football Focus. And right now on Pro Football Focus, PFF.com, you can go and get 25% off any PFF subscription if you use the promo code TOOHIGH, TWOHIGH. What can you get with PFF subscription? All of PFF's locked article content, so you can go find my piece on the 49ers defense, which I really had a fun time writing. I know you have a really good piece about some offenses coming forward this week, which is going to be super fun. So you get the locked article content and whatever else. You get all the grades. You get the NFL Green Line and then NCAA Green Line for next season. Betting dashboards, player prop tool, NFL Draft Guide coming out. That's beautiful. All that stuff. Promo code TOOHIGH, TWOHIGH for 25% off on PFF.com. All right, let's start. Just going to put you on the spot here because I agree with your takes like 99% of the time. However, your overtime take is wrong. I'm sorry, it's wrong.
Here we go.
You are in the camp of you got to get a stop on defense for you to deserve the football. Yes. You do not deserve the football. The Bills did not deserve the football last night in overtime because they could not get a stop on Patrick Mahomes and that offense. So speak to him.
Okay, so leaving me out to dry for what feels like at least the third time in the last 6 weeks.
I guess you have more bad takes than I give you credit for.
How do I want to articulate this concisely, because I don't want this conversation to continue, and maybe I didn't articulate it yesterday, but like, I don't really care what the overtime rules are. Honestly, if I woke up today and found out that the NFL decided that they were going to go to college rules, like, would I love it? No, but what the fuck ever, dude. It's extra football. Like, I'm not about to sit here and bitch and moan about extra football. But my thing was, like, I think that a lot of this really just comes down to people's gripes with the coin toss at the end of the day, which I'm okay with. Like, I grant the fact that I think calling a coin flipping in the air as a way to determine who gets to touch the football first is probably a bit antiquated, especially now, given all the different ideas that I think are around.
Well, especially after we watched XFL 1 25 years ago and we found out that is the best way to do it. Just two guys running for the football.
Right. But like I've seen, like somebody sent me something about the spot and choose thing, which is something I had forgotten about. Like I would like that to just be adopted, period. If that were just adopted, period, as a way that we determine who gets the ball and where at the beginning of halves and overtime, I'm all good with that. My thing is just like, hey, once the offense has the ball, like if the coin toss is what we've got, I recognize that that's the mechanism that we use to determine who gets the ball first. Once that's determined, you do have to get a stop. Like overtime as it's designed right now is not meant to go the duration of overtime. It's meant to break the tie. Like, and this is me recognizing that I'm already in like the very small minority of people who did not have a protest with the fact that overtime games could end in field goals. Because I just like, hey, you're in overtime to break the tie. You get in the field goal range, you kick the field goal, you break the tie. The whole point of overtime is to figure out who has the lead, right? Because we can't finish this thing with the tie. Game over. Like, but I was able to submit to the fact that, hey, you know, we at least want to make an offense have to cross the end line. That's what this game is about, is crossing the end line, not kicking field goals. And we want the opposing team to have a chance for that. So I'm okay with that. It's just more the argument that Buffalo deserves the football. Like, I feel like it's just such a minimization of what defense is supposed to be. Like, the way the game is designed, we are supposed to treat defense and offense equally. Obviously, the reality of it is that rule changes and the way that the sport is being played right now already takes so much out of the hands of a defense. I don't want this to just turn into some offensive shootout just because both quarterbacks are playing well. Like, would it have been nice to see Josh Allen respond to that? Of course. But you got to get a stop, man. I'm sorry. You got to get a stop. And I'm not going to feel bad for a defense that gave up 3 points in 13 seconds and allowed the Chiefs to take the lead in the fourth quarter at different points. You know, like I'm not shedding any tears for that. You need to get a stop if you want the football back. Period, point blank, and I will fight to the end about it.
I'm mostly on the same side as you. Like, I don't really care that much. I do think college overtime is the most fun, probably, because you just get them in scoring position right away and you just go back.
Right, it's damn near guaranteed touchdowns.
Yeah, which is great. Like it's like you're in overtime. Like, we don't need teams with the ball on their own 25. Like that part of football is done with. Right. Now, you know, and obviously, like, you would love to see a sport, you know, you look at the other sports, whether it's hockey, basketball, soccer, whatever, where you can just continue playing the sport. And it's just normal, and nothing really changes. You know what I mean? Like in hockey, there's a literal puck drop where they battle for the puck,
right?
Which is, in a sense, that's XFL rules, right? It's like battling a one-on-one battle for puck. You can't do that in football. So like whatever. I'm not super mad at the overtime rules. And I just think that the previous college overtime rules, not the new ones where they're trying to shorten the overtimes with the 2-point conversions. The ones where you're playing from the 25 or even maybe put it at 35 or something like that. I don't care. Like I'm into it. I had this very weird idea last night that I already know, like I've already been through it in my head, that is not right. But what if you had this thing where once the clock strikes 0, the game just continued? Like if it's tied.
Okay.
But I don't think it works. Like I don't think it actually works. But like as I was thinking about it, like this game would have been an example of, okay, so the last play is the Chiefs hitting the field goal, which means the next play is the Chiefs kicking off.
Right. Okay.
And like
so
that there's a bit of fairness in that.
Yes, you stole the idea from me. That was where I was going to go next. Like if you want to sell me on something as far as quote unquote overtime goes, like just treat it almost like extra time in soccer, except we're going to go until we get a score.
Yes.
Like from here, we go right into the extra point or whatever. It's a field goal, so you go right into kickoff. And now you are playing as a tied team for the next score wins. In that scenario, then, if you kick a field goal to win, boom, game over, I think. I will be okay with that if we return to that. Even if you wanted to say, hey, you got to cross the end line and get a touchdown to win, I'm good with that as well. And we can go back and forth that way. So again, I'm okay with listening to different ideas. And if that's a way to cut the coin toss element out of this process, I'm at peace with that too. I just, again, like maybe it's just me playing a semantics game. I roll my eyes at the idea of deserve. Like deserve is the wrong.
100%.
It's the wrong phrasing. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Like the framing is wrong, and I can't interact with that argument if that's the way that it's framed. Because at the end of the day, Buffalo's defense just got walked right down the field. It'd be one thing if it was like some BS, like ball is tipped off of a defensive lineman's helmet and lands in Tyreek Hill's hands, and he runs 72 yards for a touchdown. Like, okay, that's some bullshit. We probably don't want the game to end like that. But to see the way that it went, like, no, Kansas City was better in the last 2 minutes in overtime than Buffalo, and that's the reason why they're going on to the next round.
All right, let's talk about the actual football now, and the Bills and the Chiefs. Again, one of the best games I've ever seen. It was funny at the beginning of this game because it was 14. It was very low scoring in the first half. I don't remember. It was 14-7, 14-14 at halftime. And the missed kick at the end of the half by the Chiefs. And I'm watching the Bills offense, and I'll go back, for people who don't remember or new listeners to the pod, to some of the stuff that we've been talking about with the Bills offense. I think it's very important to set up the Bills offense from starting from last year into how they approach this game. So basically, they're going to get every receiver out in the route. So that's 4 receivers and the running back
in the back.
He doesn't really he might have a check release, but generally even no, he's just going out in the route. That means 5 pass protectors. And on early downs, they throw the ball a lot. They're like, one of the highest, early down pass rates. Mm-hmm. So what was happening was teams were saying, and it probably started a little before this, but it definitely happened in the AFC Championship game last year, where the Chiefs said, okay, you want to be an air raid team? No problem. We play dime against you. Okay.
Right.
Had trouble. They play week 1 against the Pittsburgh Steelers. Steelers did, maybe not in that personnel grouping, but did a lot of things that gave this type of offense trouble, which was, and you saw it in the Jaguars game later in the season where they only scored 6 points. You saw teams say, okay, you want to throw the football every fucking play? No problem. We are going to pressure you with 4, drop into zone, but you don't know which 4 are coming. It's not a straight 4-man rush with the 4 D linemen. That's it. That's all. And now you can block it up and you know where all the issues are. We're going to know where you're protecting, and we're going to try and get a free rusher from a linebacker spot, from a nickel spot, wherever it is, so that we still have everyone back in zone, all 7 defenders back in zone. We're still only rushing 4, but we're getting free rushers. And that gave them some trouble. A lot of trouble. So we've seen them during the season say, okay, well, maybe this is not necessarily, we can get away with it because we have a Goblin quarterback, because we have Josh Allen, who I don't understand how it's this good. But we don't want to live in that world all the time, because the variance is super high, and you've talked about that a lot. So what they did, and you saw it, it all came to fruition here in this Chiefs game in the divisional round, where they're putting a fullback on the field. They're running the football in early downs. They're certainly using Josh Allen as a runner. We know that's been a big thing for them since Josh Allen has been their starting quarterback in big games. But it got them into some really good looks. Like, the Chiefs were not playing the same 2 high structures that on the other side of the field, the Bills defense was doing against Patrick Mahomes. So it got them into looks where it's like, okay, they can't be in these formations where A, they're giving us sim pressures like they talked about, or B, they're giving us double teams on outside receivers because they're playing with 2 high safeties. They're giving, so much depth in their zone drops. Like, they're playing 1 high, they're playing man, they're playing cover 3, all that stuff. My biggest concern is that, okay, you did all that stuff. You had a couple nice runs. You're not going to win it running the football. And I thought they just didn't throw the ball enough or play action enough with Josh Allen, so that it's like, okay, well, like, yes, we showed you, we fooled you into thinking we were going to run the football from these formations, but now we're actually going to throw it into these advantageous looks. I don't think they did it enough. I know they scored a whole bunch of points, and I know by the end of the game they were throwing it all over the place. But even on the last on their not their last drive, but their 4-minute drive, their second to last drive, like, they were kind of running the football a lot, and they could have gotten in trouble. They didn't because Josh Allen, like I said, he's a goblin. He's a ghoul. He's a demon. He's a different player. But yeah, that's kind of how I felt about the Bills offense.
I mean, to me, like, and this is actually something that I think kind of adds to what you're saying is like you got to see a lot of the evolution of Josh Allen in this game. Like if you go and you watch early, it's like efficiency to the nth degree. Drop back, Chiefs
Yeah.
getting a bunch of depth in their zones, check it down, check it down. Dawson Knox, Isaiah McKenzie, Devin Singletary, yards after catch, all of that, like very efficient. He's not even giving it a second thought. You can just see him working his eyes. Okay, I don't have my look. I'm just going to get rid of it and play for another down. And a lot of that ties into, I think, both of our frustration with like, okay, you can't both be the check down passing offense and the 3 yards in a cloud of dust running offense that you're being right now in the first half. Because, I think that we both kind of properly pointed out the fact that the Chiefs are finding explosive plays in this first half. And the score is close right now, but the longer this goes on, the more likely it is that Kansas City breaks it open if you can't match that explosiveness. And I think a lot, like, none of this is really about Josh Allen. It's more just about the flow of the game that Brian Daboll was trying to find. Because you see in the third quarter, right, now it's more like, all right, we're back in spread. We figured it. We see how they're playing us. We don't think that they're going to give us the same trouble that we've dealt with other teams that play defense the way that the Chiefs like to, with all the cover 2 shells and, simulating pressure and the creepers, et cetera, et cetera. They felt good about, hey, let's just spread this thing wide open and you just pick what you want, Josh. We're going to get back to being vertical. And if it's not there, you extend. And when you extend, you'll find something. We trust you to find something. And that's where you get to see him get back to what the best version of Josh Allen looks like. And then, like, obviously in the fourth quarter, you get like that post throw. And that to me is like, that's where you start talking about like peak quarterback play. Because if you look at from where he gets to the top of his drop back to when he releases the ball and you're checking the safety, there's really only one split second that lets you know that you have that post ball to throw. And he was able to time that up and hit it perfectly. Like the work you see in the red zone from him, from both quarterbacks in this game, but from Josh Allen in particular, again, in the big game environment where we've seen him have trouble. It sucks that he has to leave the playoffs now, because if you take these last 2 performances in the postseason, we're looking at a dude that might be on the way to being something that we don't often see in the NFL. Like we're talking like Marino, damn near basically. Like we're talking Marino levels of quarterback play from Josh Allen over the last 2 playoff games.
Yeah, this was. I just feel bad for Buffalo, the Bills, and for Buffalo fans. You've been waiting so long. You finally got him. The quarterback. You finally got him. He fucking sucked for 2 years. We all made fun of you for 2 years. We made fun of you on draft day. Then we made fun of you for 2 years, and then, and I don't really have an.
And now you got what, like at worst, the second best quarterback in the NFL right now.
Like. And they still can't get over the hump against the same team twice. And a team that they beat in the regular season.
Right, exactly.
Like, oh, man.
The cruel iron.
They're good. They're going to win a Super Bowl. Like, they're too good. He's too good not to first get past the Chiefs and then win a Super Bowl. It's just that, this offseason is going to be a long one. Like, it's going to be a long one, man. That sucks. So, yeah, feel for our Buffalo friends, our Bills fans friends. All right, let's flip to the other side of the field. And talk about Mahomes, who was just as good as Josh Allen, kind of in a different way. It was the Bills at first playing a lot of zone cover 2. Like, hey, we're going to play cover 2, which we've seen teams give the Chiefs issues on offense this season. And Mahomes was just like slippery. He just like there was no just bad plays. Like he never compounded, oh, I'm being pressured into I'm being sacked. It was no, I'm being pressured, here's a scramble. Here's a big scramble. We saw that early on the first drive. Here's me moving out of the pocket. And even though I throw it away, it's not a negative 6-yard loss or something like that. And then some, obviously some of the sick throws, the sidearm when he's on the bootleg, a couple throws to Kelsey that were disgusting, the one to Hill, the catch and run to Hill. This was a game where, especially against a really good Bills defense, he was back to his old self.
Hey man, he had all the answers. Like he had all the answers. Like, there were no bad scrambles, there were no
Yeah.
bad incompletions, obviously no turnovers. Um, the way that he was navigating the pocket, like even in that, like I think the offensive line probably even had a better day than what you would
Yes.
think because you think about just him
100%.
scrambling, but they were able to handle the way that Buffalo likes to pressure you. The way that he navigated the soft zones, like taking what the defense gave, especially out wide on the perimeter early in the game, allowed them to open up the seams. It made Buffalo change some things that they were doing. Like just that you start to see that high level of understanding of the way defenses work, how they're defending him, where he can attack the field on a given time, the improvisational skills, the ball placement, what he can do out of structure. Like this was every box checked when we talk about like what we expect to see from Patrick Mahomes, what we expect to see from Patrick Mahomes on a week by week basis now, which is maybe even an unfair expectation. But this is what it looks like. This is why the expectation is what it is. Because when he's rolling and when he's seeing everything and he's able to make all the throws, like there's nothing you can do about it. I didn't hate Buffalo's game plan for the most part.
No.
You want to protect your corners against all this goddamn speed and this dude who has a rocket arm. The one thing that I will say, like going back and watching it for the first time, and I'm going to dig in deeper as we continue to go along this week. But if you're going to do what they wanted to do in zone coverage, like your middle linebacker has to be what Fred Warner is, and Edmonds just wasn't that today, or excuse me, yesterday. Like he wasn't the worst in the world, but when you're playing against the Chiefs and the margin of error is the size of my pinky nail, like you can't be off. And the times that he was off, they got punished. And it made it more difficult for Buffalo, I think, to try to play defense, especially trying to play tight coverage late in games, because now you have to be concerned with whether or not your linebacker can handle it, how you rotate your defense in order to play man to protect guys like that. So they just ran out of answers, man. There's not much to say. There's really just not much to say about what else they could have done. There was no other answer.
Yeah, they started in cover 2 zone, and then the Chiefs did a good job picking on Edmonds as the middle linebacker, it's a tough assignment in cover 2, right? For the Mike. He's got to play high, he's got to play low at the same time, kind of. So, tough assignment. And then with all the scrambling, I thought they ended up playing a more, they would show the cover 2 highlight and they would spin a safety down in like a robber type of look. I think a lot of that, and it's funny, whenever they did that, they really got the Chiefs trying to hit those crossing routes and the robber standing in the way, like exactly how you design it. But I also think one of the reasons I did that was to get vision on Patrick Mahomes with all the scrambles. So like they had a guy that was like really, it was like, okay, I'm a half field safety, and then on the snap I'm coming down to a robber, and if the ball isn't thrown, I become a spy.
Right.
Like it's kind of like that. And then they end up, and this is something they do play a lot of, which is cover 2 man. And that was the play that Tyreek Hill gets loose for, the big touchdown that really cost him the game. Well, I guess that didn't cost him the game because the Chiefs had another drive after that. Yeah. We shouldn't talk about that. We'll talk about that in a second. But one of the fun things was earlier in the game when they had played cover 2 man. Now, you tell me before I get into this, just so I'm not sound like an idiot. But cover 2 man, what is the technique and the leverage for the person who is in man coverage? So we have 2 high safeties and everyone else is man-to-man, a 4-man rush.
You want to be inside. You want to deny the inside, low inside trail. If you're going to get beat, you want to be over your head, because the assumption is that your safeties, if they get to their landmarks, have enough depth, just like Tampa 2, right? Ball comes off the guy, front hand comes off the ball, the ball is going out to the sideline. If you have enough depth, that buys you the time you need in order to affect the throw. So that's the idea.
So when I think cover 2 man offensively, we're thinking, hey, we're going to throw outbreaking routes. And we're going to try and fit the ball in there between let's say the cornerback who's covering in man, the safety who's over the top, and the sideline now. And that's what the defense wants to give you. You got to be perfect with it. So you saw earlier in the game when they played cover 2 man, they were able to actually, and even though Patrick Mahomes doesn't throw the ball, you see it on the All-22, there's a backside route that gets open on an in-breaking concept, on an in-breaking route against inside leverage. And I feel like, that's where you go to the sideline, you say, hey, if you watch the play again on your tablet, and then you're saying, hey man, if we get 2-man again, yeah, we understand that they're taking away the inside, but in this game, in this scenario, we think we can get a win inside. And then you put your best receiver, you put Tyreek Hill there, and he gets the win inside, and it's over. And then him with all his backs turned and his speed going down the field. I mean, that was fucking sick.
Well, dude, like I don't even know the sound. I don't even know what sound it was that came out of my body when he hit top speed. Like there's a moment with Tyreek Hill. Like it's not particular to him, but obviously he gets so many explosive plays that you see it with him so often, especially like in plus territory where there's a bunch of traffic around, but he turns a corner at like the 30-yard line and you realize like, okay, nobody has a prayer of touching this guy. You're within 3 yards of him, but you're never going to get a finger on this guy. And to see the peace sign come up, I'm like, you play 2-man, you try to deny the guy on the inside, but he runs a 4-2, so he beats you inside anyways, and now your safety is 20 yards away. He's not getting to the ball, and it basically just turns into like a punt return. There was no hope for them on that. And even outside of like another scheme thing that came up, obviously, is like the last 13 seconds where you see Kansas City drive into field goal range to force the overtime, right? Like, and it's funny looking at this 1 week after you see what happens with Dallas. And my whole thing is not hey, they got into field goal range in the same amount of time it took Dallas to run that sneak and miss the spike. Whatever, dude. I don't care. I'm not here to dunk on Dallas about that. That shit's dead and gone by now. But from a schematic perspective and a play calling perspective, Kansas City handled that perfectly, but it's perfect in a way that's particular to Kansas City because they have a guy that runs a 4-2. Nobody, when they're on their own 25 or whatever, is just going to say, hey, we'll get into a bunch while you're playing sideline defense and just throw a smoke screen to Tyreek Hill. Hey, go get 20 yards from the line of scrimmage to wherever you get tackled, and we'll call timeout or spike the ball or whatever. So there's nothing that Buffalo could do there because you don't want to play tight coverage. Because if you blow it, that's the game. You want to get depth. You want to protect the sideline and make them work the middle of the field with the clock running down. The second play, and this is something that you mentioned right before we got on, which is Travis Kelce obviously splitting the two zone defenders and then getting a bunch of yards after the catch in order to get in the field goal range. In that scenario, because of Travis Kelce's split, he's so close to the tackle, he's actually in a perfect position to do what he did because the corner still has to prioritize the sideline. You don't want to be caught so close to Kelce. If he runs a corner route or something like that over the top of you, you have very little support from the safety because he's going to be playing the end zone before he plays anything underneath. So the fact he was just able to widen, turn up the field, and obviously I'm sure a lot of people heard the post-game comments where they said that was kind of improvised, which is a really smart improvisation against sideline defense. But yeah, even with that, like, you're not going to play man against that. You're not going to play cover 3 against that. Like, you're not looking to take away the seams in that situation. But again, particularly because Kansas City has a tight end that can function as an X receiver, you can do what Kansas City did against loose defense like that because you'd never imagine that a guy that split that close to the line of scrimmage is going to be the guy that gets the explosive play to get you in the field goal range. So that was an impressive kind of takeaway for me. It was just like the way that they managed that in the game situation. And then obviously we just saw the way that they were able to march down the field in overtime with the screen. You get the coverage busted man when they're in bunch and Mecole Hardman runs the drag route across and his defender gets picked by Kelce. And then you get that double move, the wheel route or the out and up by Kelce to kind of close the game out. So just like from a play calling perspective from Kansas City's point of view, basically everything from after that ridiculous speed option that they ran on 3rd and 1 was like lights out, damn near perfect.
Oh yeah, sorry. I was gonna say on the speed option, good play call, bad execution.
Yes, like I tweeted it. Like you got to be willing to die as a quarterback.
Yeah,
like,
he pitched that so early, bro.
You got to lay your life on the line as a quarterback in the option scheme.
You got to go until
somebody's got to touch you. I'm sorry.
Let's go, buddy. Let's
go. Like honestly,
you got to go die for that shit.
Right. Like to me, I understand. Like when you draw up the option, when you draw up a speed option in particular, you're drawing it up for the pitch, right? You're trying to get leverage on the defense. But the only way that works is if they have to honor you as a quarterback. So to me, if I'm the quarterback in this option scheme, I would rather this play fail because I got tackled as I'm trying to pitch the ball than to just pitch it out early and then going backwards, right? So now I just turned 4th and 1 into 4th and 4 or whatever, you know? Like I'm putting too much on the running backs plate. So hated that call, but everything after that was great.
I didn't love the relationship between the quarterback and the pitch. It was too far back. You know what I mean? Like you kind of
it was too slow. Blake Bell was moving too goddamn slow.
You have to be in front. Like that pitch is I know it's speed option from Minnesota maybe a little different, but like you have to be almost the pitch has to look like it's almost forward.
Yes,
like that's a good pitch.
You want to catch the running back as he's moving forward towards the ball. So he's sprinting. You don't want him going back or catching it on his hip. Like you want him to be flying up the field when he gets the ball.
My one thing before we get to the next game is just with the last play before the field goal in regulation. I thought maybe the Bills could have rushed 3. Now you clog up that seam lane, right? Because now you have an extra zone defender. Because I don't think you care if Mahomes scrambles around. I think he's too far from the end zone. Just scramble around and throw a touchdown.
Right.
You know what I mean? So like you could, they didn't have a lot of time left. So I don't know. Anyways, let's get to the next one in a segment. We're going to talk about the Bucs and the Rams in a segment that I like to call "Why Are You Playing Cover Zero with 25 seconds left?" All right, and that segment is presented by Western and Southern. I want a chance to win the ultimate game day feast. Whether it's football success or financial savvy, winning starts with asking us questions. Would you like to know what it's like behind the scenes with Al Michaels on Sunday Night Football? How about a need to know for your financial future? Western and Southern is teaming up with PFF's very own Chris Collinsworth to share insights that can help put you ahead on both your fantasy and financial scoreboards. Every submission earns you a chance to win the ultimate game day feast to celebrate football's favorite Sunday. And we'll cover your catering up to $2,500, coordinate your order from a restaurant near you, and have it delivered on February 13th. It's coming up, 2022. Don't forget to check out the Chris Collinsworth podcast and Western and Southern's Instagram for answers to the best questions each week. Submit your questions at westernsouthern.com/feast. One more time, that is westernsouthern.com/feast. If you're watching on YouTube, check out the link in the description below. I don't know how fast I'm talking. I had so much fucking espresso this morning. I cannot sit when you're talking. I cannot sit still. I'm fucked up right now. All right, let's talk about the Bucs. Let's start with the last play, or I guess the second to last play in the Bucs-Rams game. Unbelievable comeback by the Bucs, and then they get so they play 2-man. So 2 plays before they play 2-man, and they get exactly kind of what we're talking about earlier, where they get the outbreaking route to Cooper Kupp. The cornerback falls a bit. They get a nice throw out there, but now there's no timeouts left. The ball, I don't remember if the ball was in bounds or something. Yeah, the ball was in bounds, so they're hurrying up or whatever it was. I don't remember. And then Todd Bowles calls cover 0. No timeouts for the Rams. Middle of the field, or even before, the 40, I don't remember.
Like at the 45, 46, something like that.
He calls cover 0. No one is set up, which I know is kind of to a certain degree is not on him. But everyone's running around. Everyone's coming from depth. And guess what play the Rams run? Dagger. Guess what play the Rams always run?
I was going to say, like,
dagger.
The Shanahan guys, like, this is what they do. This is literally what they do. They need a big play in the passing game. You're going to get a clear out up the seam and a dig coming underneath. Like, okay. I love Todd Bowles, too.
Yeah,
I love Todd Bowles. And honestly, like, I know it was 27-3, and you had the badly blown coverage on the Cooper Kupp touchdown up the sideline against Tampa, too. But basically, outside of that, they have played really, really well in coverage, particularly against Kupp. Like, it was clear that it was a good point of emphasis for them that they were going to get hands on this guy and they were going to squeeze everything that was happening in the seam, and they were able to take him away, like, for the most part, right? Like, the issue with this call, number one, situation. Neither team has any timeouts, right? Ball's in the middle of the field, not in field goal range. A field goal wins. If the ball's on the plus 42, meaning they are, like, for all intents and purposes, right on the edge of typical field goal range for what we know of NFL kickers now, because everybody can make fucking 58-yard field goals with their eyes closed these days. In that scenario, if you want to cover zero blitz, that's fine, because you're knowing the percentages, you're probably banking on the fact that unless we block this field goal, it's probably going in, right? Like, that makes sense to pressure there. But in the scenario where they sent the blitz, nobody's set for one. That's a big problem. So you can't call a cover zero blitz if there's chaos. Like, that's not a chaos call. That's a call like, hey, everybody's set. It's like off of an incompletion. And this is something that I've seen the Steelers do a bunch in end-of-game situations. Under Butler, their defensive coordinator before him, I'm blanking on the name.
Well, Butler was there. Butler was there for like 25 years.
Right.
It was like Dick LeBeau. It's like the last.
Right. It was like LeBeau. Right. So like, I've seen teams that are typically blitzing pressure teams like the Bucks are, go with a pressure when you know you're getting like 5 to 7 step drop back concepts, right? Yeah. Especially in situations like that where you don't really want completions up the middle of the field. But it's just the wrong call, man. It's a bad call in that situation. I think Winfield didn't play it the best either, like, which sucks. I'm sure, I think that he was obviously assuming that, hey, if you're going zero, this ball's coming out hot, and it's definitely not going to have the kind of trajectory that it did. Matthew Stafford did a really good job standing tall in the pocket because he had pressure coming right down the pipe and letting it rip.
Dude, the ball from the end zone angle is, I can't.
Gross.
I can't.
It's gross, dude. It's gross. But yeah, man, I mean, it sucks. It sucks. Again, from a play calling perspective, you're maybe 10 to 15 yards away from where I really, really like the zero blitz. I don't like it in chaos situations where you can't get guys lined up. And I don't really like it against the condensed splits like that, because it was just, it didn't look, the pressure look doesn't look good because your edges are wide. They're just squeezing everything in protection. And even though they let a guy through the A gap, like, you're not getting the same effect of the pressure, right? Like, I think Levante David was one of the blitzers, and he basically just got wasted, or it might have been Devin White. Just got wasted on the play because they're just squeezing the protection, like, so you just don't get the look. You don't get the actual look you want, and you end up with their best wide receiver on your young safety. Probably not the look you want at the end of the game either.
I like the all-out pressure. Like you said, after an incompletion, let me get lined up and let me show you that I'm coming, so that you think I got to get the ball out quickly.
Out now,
and like, okay, and we live in the world where we're saying you get the ball out. We don't even care if you complete it, but it's at 5 yards and we make a tackle. Now, if they break a tackle, they go for a touchdown. Obviously, we're having the same. We're getting pissed off about bowls as well, but like, still, I think that I'm okay with. It's just like everything was, like you said, the chaos was really the issue in this one. All right, so let's stick on the Rams offense. Like you said, you thought they actually did a good job of playing the Bucks defense, and I thought that this was I thought this was a good day for the Rams to kind of go back to what Sean McVay has done for years, which is like suck up the linebackers and throw those 12-yard glance routes right behind them. That didn't really happen. I think the Bucks are susceptible to that type of shit. Didn't really happen. And then, I'm about to steal all your points that you made to me before the show, so I'll let you talk now.
No, go ahead, man. Like, you're the quarterback dude. Like, I'm only giving like what my initial reactions were.
No, it was just like they did a good job, like you said. Not doubling Cup, but in their cover 3 and sometimes even in their quarter stuff. Squeezing him with 2 players underneath. Not like when we think about double, we think about like one high, one low, or like a man guy and a zone guy over top of him. This was like kind of 2 horizontal stretches, 2 horizontal like pincers, vices, because those are the routes he's going to run, right? The option routes underneath. They put him in the backfield. He comes out of the backfield to run an option route, and you squeeze him, you squeeze him like that. So I thought that was a good one. And then after that, a lot of checkdowns. The big play to Cup at the end of the half was them busting a cover 2 play. You're not happy about it. If you're I don't know if the safety kind of got sucked inside on the inside route, and then the corner, he's allowed to come off of Kupp at some point. I just thought on 3rd and 20, he got a little too horny for the flat route. So that leaves Kupp down the sideline. And then I think the other big play was the Higbee in the seam. Higbee in the seam, you don't see a lot of. This is like a first drive, I believe. You don't see a lot of 2x2 4 verts. So everyone's straight down the sideline, and that's what they ran. And honestly, if you have a chance to go, like whoever's listening to this, to go and either view it from the All-22, or I think like if you go watch the broadcast, they show it from the Skycam look on NBC with Chris Collinsworth. You see like the perfect teach tape for 2x2 4 verts against cover 3, where it's take your drop back, and then quarterbacks will do it, and it's taught in different ways. You can say, "Hey, I am throwing this left seam." And the player that takes it away is, let's say, we get a little simple, but here, the safety. The safety takes it away. I reset for the right seam, and I sling it in there, which is what happened. Or you can say it like, hey, I am taking my drop, and I'm reading the safety. And if he opens right, I throw left. If he opens left, I throw right. So it ends up being kind of the same thing. It's just little semantics there and like granular detail on how you read it. But that's what happened. And it showed off a little bit of like how Stafford is using his eyes right now. His eyes are, whoa, he is looking at one guy and throwing there, and he's looking here, and then he's coming back to this side. It's ridiculous the way he's throwing the football right now. And I'm happy to see OBJ make plays. His catch on the sideline where he kind of double clutched it. Like, the back shoulder he threw like at 7 yards on the sideline, and he kind of like double clutched it, but then they showed the replay and he actually just caught it with one hand. Sorry. Like, you're not allowed to do that. I'm sorry.
He's gross. He's gross again, man.
So
you're talking about Goblin Quarterbacks, man. Odell is starting to creep his way back to being a Goblin wide receiver.
They're getting him involved more on some of the stuff that is like part of their offense, which is super exciting. And Higbee is making plays, man. And he's part of the offense. I was talking to you about this last week, but like he's part of the offense. They're now running stuff for Tyler Higbee to get open, and he's making plays for them.
I mean, like, honestly, and this is not a one-to-one comparison, but like I just think about some of the good plays that we saw from Stafford in Detroit when he had like Galladay. And, I forget who he had at a tight end, but they had a pretty complete complement of wide receivers around them, even if there was no like tier 1 guy. And you can kind of see the confidence that he had then when he had trust in everything across the board starting to be replicated again in LA. And now you're just, tying him to one of the best play callers in the NFL. But to your point about like getting Odell involved in the stuff that they do, that adds to Stafford because you can see as he's working through progressions like, okay, peak is my one-on-one on the backside here. I'm not really sure. I'll come back front side, looking for Kupp, looking for Higbee within the progression. All right, now I've got enough time in the down. I can actually work back now to Odell because I know that his elite understanding of his position is going to get him into a window if it's against like a too high look or if it's against man, whatever the case may be. I can come back to him late if it's not there right now with the trust that he will have worked his way into a window I can throw into. And even in this game, right? Like, even though they were able to put up 27 points so early, especially thanks to like some turnovers, the rhythm of this game, I think from McVay's perspective was kind of disjointed because when they weren't driving the ball off of turnovers, they also weren't getting really any explosives outside of the big throw to Kupp up the sideline. But it's nice, again, and this is what we've been talking about all year, when you don't have perfect rhythm within this offense, that you can just ask your quarterback to go get you 7 yards. Like, can you just go get me 7 yards on first down, please? So we don't have to fuck around with this outside zone thing. And I don't have to break my brain trying to think of all the motions and bunches and empties that there are in order to try to manufacture this space and run all these damn tunnel screens. Like, they've been able to build out, I think, and I love where they're at right now because to your point about speaking about all these guys individually, that's really the takeaway that I have watching them is like, they've got a use for every last one of these guys that they put on the football field, and they're getting the most out of basically everybody. Short of Cam Akers is 2 fumbles, which damn near killed him. Like, everybody made a positive contribution to this game, even though the second half for them was like a super slog. So it just kind of speaks to where they're at. They're still in rhythm, even when things aren't great from a game flow perspective.
Flipping it over, the Bucks. I mean, I didn't see a lot. It was tough. I think we knew this could be a problem, and it was a problem. They couldn't protect Brady.
Couldn't protect, man.
You can play Jalen on Mike Evans, and we saw just not a lot of big. We saw the touchdown. It was such a great play by Mike Evans running by Jalen, but other than that, they couldn't really find Mike Evans with the football. And then you're living in a world where, and we've said this the whole year, like, can Gronk be a super contributor in a one-game scenario? Yes, he can. Is it possible that he just doesn't do anything? Yeah, that's possible also. And then you have Scotty Miller and Tyler Johnson who just, don't cut it as, number 2 guys.
Right. They're okay. It's just,
I like both of them, but they're not.
They're not going to win you a
obviously
playoff
not Chris
game.
Godwin and Antonio Brown.
Exactly. They're not going to win you a playoff game. They're nice to have. They will not win you a playoff game. But yeah, like, from Brady's perspective, I just thought that the pressure was good enough, and while he can win taking 57 dropbacks or whatever, like, I just thought that he just missed. He missed on a bunch, and not so much like, oh, guys broke open late and he was in a rush, so he didn't see it. It was just like accuracy off a little bit here, accuracy off a little bit there. The pick that he threw on the corner route, that was just like, he floated that ball. That one probably didn't need to be floated, or if he was going to float it, he definitely needed to lead him much higher up the field than where he did. I didn't love the game until the second half. We had the nice out and up throw to Mike Evans, right? That tied up the game. But outside of that, there really wasn't even anything down the field. And this is not because the Rams broke out like some super intricate coverage package. Like, if they're rushing 4, they're playing quarters, or they're dropping a safety down to play like regular cover 3 rip Liz match, or they got 5 guys down and they're playing cover 1 or 3 deep, 3 under. Like, literally almost exactly like how Todd Bowles is on the other side. If you're playing the Rams defense, the looks you're going to get. They're not throwing a bunch of new shit at you. They're going to rely on the things that they do best. I just thought that, for as much as I would have expected Brady to really be able to punish it, especially early in the game, they just weren't able to. And this is, I think, another effect of what the Rams have up front, both in terms of stopping the run and getting after the passer, that they can get themselves into situations like this where you can make even the greatest quarterback of all time uncomfortable, not only from a play calling and game flow perspective, but just like on a snap-to-snap basis.
All right, we have to get to the other 2 games before we get out of here. And those other 2 games are presented by Manscaped. All right. Oh, my God. Are you ready for this one?
I'm afraid. I'm so afraid. I didn't open the ad copy when they sent it, and I'm afraid to hear it now.
Here we go. Roses are red, violets are blue. Don't let Jesus. Roses are red, violets are blue. Don't let a wild pube wreck you. And that's Manscaped, ladies and gentlemen. All right, Valentine's Day is just around the corner. And our sponsors at Manscaped are here for you with the best tools to get your skin ready for the special occasion. This V-Day, it's time to join the 4 million men worldwide who trust Manscaped. Okay, so actually, my friend used promo code PFF for 20% off and free shipping last week when we were watching the wildcard rounds together. And I seen him again yesterday, and he without me prompting him at all, he was like, yo, the Manscaped shit is wild good. That is a pure testimonial. I swear I'm not making that up. He was like,
is that a direct quote?
That is, yeah, it actually is. It was, he loves it. He said it's the best razor he's ever had. He says he loves the nose and ear hair trimmer. He loves all of it. And he was like, then he was doing the spiel for our other friends who didn't buy the Manscaped stuff last week. So I think I'm doing a good job with the ad reads. Okay, buddy. All right. So yeah, like I said, promo code PFF at manscaped.com. You get 20% off and free shipping for the Performance Package 4.0, which you got to get. And all that stuff. So like that's what it is. 25%, 20% off and free shipping. Promo code PFF at manscaped.com. Join Cupid and shoot your arrow with Manscaped this Valentine's Day. Okay. 49ers, Packers, obviously, one of the big upsets of the weekend, or the big upset of the weekend. This fucking 49ers defense, without any cornerbacks, we talked about it last week, the way they play zone coverage is the best in football right now. They're passing routes off, they're getting the appropriate depth, everyone is on a string together, and they live in a world. So we saw first, against the Cowboys last week, we saw them say, okay, well, yes, you're putting Cooper and Lamb outside, but you don't really target them that much. So we don't have to, we can play our corners off. We give you what you want there. And the Cowboys didn't take it and tried to hit the middle of the field. With the Packers, you have a different scenario where you're saying, okay, if you play Davante Adams outside, he is probably getting the football. So we can't handle you one-on-one. They did once or twice, whatever. But we're going to double you, right? We're going to play one guy underneath, one guy over top. And they still, even though you have two defenders out of your 7 zone droppers allocated to one player, the rest of the 5 guys are still so good. When Fred Warner leading the pack there are so good at figuring out what's going on, getting underneath routes that are coming behind their head. And it's just a joy to watch.
I mean, dude, the most telling stat of the game is that Davante Adams is the only non-running back to touch the ball more than once for the Packers. Like,
crazy.
And part of that, obviously, are the conditions of the game. But if you go back and watch, I mean, what do you want Aaron Rodgers to do with some of this stuff? Aside from the deep shot in the fourth quarter, where you see Allen Lazard very obviously breaking open on the over route because they're trying to roll the coverage over the top for Davante Adams. And even in that, there's a calculated risk to that makes a lot of sense late in games, knowing where Rodgers wants to send the football and being willing to concede one thing to try to take away what he does best. I loved seeing the way that they've dropped in the zone coverage, something that we talked about after the Dallas game, as you mentioned. And it's just funny to see it just be replicated over these different approaches of offense. Like with Dallas, where everything is super precise, stop routes, digs, slants, et cetera, where everything's trying to be thrown as soon as a wide receiver breaks. Right? There's a certain degree of difficulty in playing zone against that. Then against an offense like this, it's a little bit more vertical, a little bit more crossers. You're going to see more shots outside the numbers, things like that. You still see an ability from these safeties to have an elite understanding of when this corner needs help. Not when I can give help, but exactly when it's needed, how to shade in a direction that's not just undressing my underneath zone defenders to get picked on, right, by option routes or slants, something up the seam, whatever the case may be. Even some of the designer plays that you see Green Bay try to get to take advantage of this stuff, outside of that Lazard play that we mentioned, it's not a lot of open space to work into. In the times that there may be, this is where that additional layer of your coverage, like I say, which is your pass rush, gets the most value. Because the longer that these plays take, you see Aaron Rodgers trying to work through his progression, and now you get Nick Bosa crushing the pocket, right? Now you get your Arden Keys, you get your Eric Armstead.
Arden Key finally having a career, man. I'm here for it.
It's crazy. It's crazy to see how they've developed all of these guys and get plus pass rush out of all 4 guys that they have on the field at a given time. It's just not something that you see a whole lot of. And, they just have all 3 levels of the defense are obviously just performing at a high level. And I don't love the way that San Francisco's offense matches up in a playoff environment against LA. I know what happened in the Monday Night Football game. I don't love that matchup. I am still going to be glued to this NFC Championship game because I cannot wait to see how Matthew Stafford and this offensive line tries to deal with what they're going to see from San Francisco's defense.
I hope for the 49ers' sake on offense that they are not banged up, because we saw them limping, and that's a product of the cold. I mean, it hurts more when you get hit in those type of conditions. So hopefully they're okay going forward, because obviously Kittle was limping and Trent was limping. Like that's not a good thing. I hope that they can figure it out. Obviously the Packers I don't want to say should have won. I don't like, man, it's tough to put this whole thing on Rodgers, but at the same time, like you go kind of like go be a player. Like
Gotta go be a player.
But
I mean, hey, dude,
I don't know.
you're Aaron Rodgers. Like I know it sounds unfair to say on Monday morning or Monday afternoon, but go be Aaron Rodgers, man. At a certain
I will
point.
say though, as like Sunday night, the dopamine that I got from watching that Chiefs Bills game as a total neutral in that game was great. The dopamine I got Saturday night,
woo,
when the Packers lost and Justice Mosqueda had to cope in the group chat, and cope on his faces. I loved it.
Kiss. That's just such a great from like a personal, like you said, a personal dopamine release perspective. This weekend was damn near perfect. The only thing that sucked about this weekend was Ryan Tannehill's shit in the bed.
All right, so wait, let's get into Tannehill shit in the bed, because when I rewatched the game, now you know me, Joe Burrow is the best quarterback of all time. The team of destiny is Cincinnati Bengals. They're going to win the Super Bowl. Joe Burrow is the best. That's it. Like, I love it. Jamar Chase is the best ever. Blah blah blah. When I rewatched that game, there was no reason for the Titans to lose. No reason for the Titans to lose. And I'll start with the fact that, so first of all, the Cincinnati, the Bengals on defense played a lot of bear fronts, a lot of 5-man fronts, and even a lot of quote unquote 6-man fronts. I think that was the famous tilt front that the Patriots played against the Rams in the Super Bowl a couple years ago. So they're running their non-pulling plays, inside zone, outside zone duo, and they can't get the double teams, and the Bengals are doing a good job against the run. However, if you're going to play with those type of numbers on the front line, you are susceptible to play action pass. And even though I believe 40% of Tannehill's passes were play action, they got the interception on the first play, which was a great play by Jesse Bates. And they actually created some big plays. There were guys open all the time on play action. There was such a void in that Bengals defense. And, you have A.J. Brown, you have Julio Jones, and there could have been bigger plays. He overthrows A.J., I think it was A.J., early in the game. And that would have been a big play, might have busted the game open. But they had all this schematically. They won the game by kind of forcing the Bengals into their bare fronts, into that tilt front, because of what they thought they were going to get from Derrick Henry being back in the lineup. And then even that, so they couldn't run the ball with their zone plays in the duo. They said, "Oh, you want to play bear? No problem. Wash you guys down. Here's counter," and it worked.
Right.
And it's like everything they did schematically worked. And then the Bengals just made some really nice plays. Mike Hilton makes a great play to intercept the ball when the Titans were driving. Jesse Bates, like I said, makes a great play. And then obviously the tip in the air interception. Maybe Ryan Tannehill might have been a beat late on both the Bates interception and the last interception, but
right.
Some really good plays by the Bengals defense. But I thought the Titans had it, man.
I mean, before I get back to Tannehill, the one person I really want to give a lot of credit for is DJ Reader, because he was like single-handedly Cincinnati's run defense on like half of those handoffs to Derrick Henry. Like he almost like singularly crushed everything that was happening in the interior run game. But to your point, like if there's 6 guys up at the line of scrimmage, man, like you gotta find something in the intermediate areas to take advantage of this defense with. And some of this is credit to Cincy. Like, obviously, again, we continue to talk about this because we've said it so many times throughout our podcast, but what you're getting from Tennessee, especially when Derrick Henry's healthy and A.J. Brown is there. Like, the play action passes you're going to get, which is how Jesse Bates undercuts that throw. It was a beat late, but credit to your middle of field safety for coming out of the post and driving down and taking away a curl.
Hell of a play.
It's a hell of a play, man. You got to tip your cap to that. The tip pass, like you said, you're a hair late, but I get it. It's a conversion down late in the game. You're just trying to move the chains. I understand. Not the worst thing in the world. You just wouldn't want to turn the ball over. The ball could have been placed a little bit more inside, but whatever, dude. Like at that point, that was not the determinant for me for whether or not Tannehill was shit in the bed. I think that I had kind of already felt that way. But the post ball, like you were saying, missing that over the top. those are the kinds of opportunities in this offense that you can't miss because it's only built to get explosives off of those particular plays. You're not just putting the ball in Tannehill's hands in a drop back sense and just saying, hey, go make it happen. And a lot of what they do is designed to break these star wide receivers open. There's not just like a bunch of improvisational ability or option routes and all the things that we see from more typically from the spread offense type of world. Like that's not here in this offense. And you saw a lot of like Cincinnati being able to play like halves coverage, being able to play cover two with passing strength and just sink underneath these routes and take away these windows.
When it was a passing down, now you're asking Tannehill to play against a more complex defense than the ones he was seeing on early downs. And they couldn't. I mean, the two of the interceptions were on straight dropbacks, like non-play action dropbacks, and that skews it. But like, they didn't move the ball at all. And he threw a low, I think, in front on a slant to AJ early in the game, and
I mean, that'll do it. Like on the other side, like, do you have any big takeaways from Cincinnati? Like, it's so weird for them being in the AFC Championship game for me because I think that they probably had the easiest route here in terms of opponent quality. And I don't know how much they've been pushed by the opponents that they've played. So I'm still kind of up in the air with how I feel about this team.
The only thing is they are happy to go to Kansas City and not Buffalo. I think that's
100%. 100%.
Because obviously we saw what they just did a couple weeks ago or a month ago. They put up a whole bunch of points against the Kansas City defense, and I think they could. We'll get to this on the Thursday episode or the Friday episode this week. The actual matchup between the Bengals and the Chiefs. But in this game, you just saw everything that we said was going to be a problem, which was the offensive line is just horrific. Horrible. Jonah Williams felt like he didn't want to play it some snaps. Hakeem Adeniji tries hard. He knows his limitations, and he still gets beat quite a bit. It's not good. Both in and this is kind of what we were saying earlier in the podcast about the Bills. Like they want the Bengals also want to get five guys out in the route all the time, and you can get them with some blitzes where you get free rushers because they have to. They have their rules on the offensive line. They have to do it a certain way, and you can get free rushers coming in, which you saw that. So you saw in kind of both cases, which was individuals on the offensive line getting beat, and then the scheme itself getting beat, allowing free rushers. And this was a rough one. We know that Burrow can handle it generally, but this was really bad. And they got just enough done, I guess.
Yeah, I mean. The last question I have, before we sign out here, I'm not going to ask you to pick winners. We'll talk about that for the Friday show. But who do you feel the best about leaving the weekend?
Buffalo.
In both.
Who do I feel best about is Los Angeles. That's not for me. It's no question. You beat the defending Super Bowl champs. Obviously, there were issues pertaining to their injuries. You beat the Super Bowl champs in a game that you probably dominated. If not for some randomness on the football field. I'll probably say LA. You?
LA for me too. Like getting the road playoff win against the defending champs.
Yeah.
I think it was a big feather in the cap for Stafford specifically, being able to handle that end of game situation when it seemed like a meltdown was imminent by everybody else on the roster. Like I love to see that. So I probably feel about as strongly about them, as anything. And, you get to play for a chance to play at home for the Super Bowl against a team that I think they're more talented than. I think that this what happens, what happens, we'll talk about on Friday. But I like where they're positioned right now, maybe better than anybody. Kansas City obviously just came off of an amazing win, but I kind of like what the Bengals do specifically against what the Chiefs have done, and we obviously saw that come to fruition when they played in the regular season, and I kind of feel like that one might be going in the same direction. But no spoilers, we'll get to it later on in the week. I kind of like where these matchups are at for both LA and for the Chiefs.
All right. We are done talking. See you guys later.